Hey, it's James, Father's Rights and Resources, hashtag how I got custody. A lot of people throw out the phrase due process and they don't even really understand what they're talking about. So I'm going to give some examples of what I use in court as far as due process and arguing why my rights might be violated. If you want to know about due process, you need to read the 14th Amendment and then read Troxel versus Granville. Troxel versus Granville is in my flow page. Or just type in TROXEL. I have a video on it on my YouTube channel. Every one of you on Instagram or TikTok should be going to my YouTube channel to look at more lengthy videos and detailed. And then you can search by topic. You can't do it on a phone for whatever reason. You can do it on a tablet, laptop, or desktop. On the main, above the main video, there's a magnifying glass, a little magnifying glass. You could type in a search topic: attorneys, pictures, brief, trial, deposition, whatever. Best interest, contempt, whatever. Restraining orders, false allegations, and find certain. Or you could type in how I got custody, one word, and then your topic in the main YouTube search bar at the top of YouTube. You should watch my video on Troxel versus Granville, because I only got 10 minutes in this video. I think my Troxel versus Granville video is like 15, 20 minutes long. So due process is process that is due to you by the court. That's only if they're going to take a right away. But most of the time when they go to court, if they fine you a ticket or whatever, they're going to take something away. But you have to articulate it like that. You can't go in and just, due process, give me due process. You have to explain yourself a little better than that. If you're playing basketball in a one-on-one game or a team at the YMCA or at the gym or whatever, and somebody travels or double dribbles, you guys have an argument over the interpretation of the rules. You don't just say, hey, that's travel, and they go, oh, okay. Or they go, no, it's not travel. You go, yeah, it is. No, it's not. You'll say, hey, the rule book says 1.5 steps. You took 3 steps. And they'll say, no, I stopped, and that's my pivot, and you looked at it wrong. And you'll be breaking down the rules. You have to do that in court, too. If you could do that in a pickup game, or you could complain to somebody, hey, I paid you for a medium well ribeye, and you gave me a rare ribeye. I want my money back, or I want it fixed, or I want something free to be compensated for the inconvenience. You know how to argue that. But some people go to court and say, hey, due process. You got to get a little deeper than that when you're going to court. So, the 14th Amendment, life, liberty, and property, nobody can be deprived of it without due process. You basically have to kind of have the right to pursue the happiness without government interference, stuff like that. Troxel versus Granville says that parents have a constitutional right to autonomy with their kids and raised to the care and custody of them without government interference. And government's doing it all the time, especially with all this tranny stuff. CPS comes in and takes your kid if the kid tells the counselor, I feel like I'm a boy and it's a girl. And so they just start the whole avalanche of the entire system that is set up to usher in the kids to the money-making scam of a system of mutilation of a kid, which is promoted and supported by Planned Parenthood and other nefarious groups that Planned Parenthood sets themselves up in black communities to target people of color in order to keep the population low. They want as many abortions as possible. And you don't have a lot of medical care for other stuff, just the stuff to eliminate the population or keep it low. They don't have like health care, organic stores in the hood or whatever. There's that documentary out there. Oh my God, they're trying to kill us or they're killing us. I forget. Anyway, if they're trying to take away life, liberty, or property, they're trying to take away your house and divide it up and give it to somebody else. Make you sell your house. They're trying to make you do this and that out of the tradition without regard for your rights. So you have to stand up for your rights. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to say, hey, look, I have a due process right to the care and custody of my kid. The mother's trying to interfere with that, so I have due process rights here. What are your due process rights? You don't have a right to an attorney in family court. You have a right in criminal court. So the judges will think you're not in criminal court, you don't have due process rights. Bullshit. I may not be going to jail, but I have a custody right to my kids that's being interfered with, and you're trying to take my property and divide it up and give it to somebody I'm not married to anymore. So I have a constitutional interest, or they call it a liberty interest, a right. I have an interest in my liberty or freedom. Okay? So, sorry about the bouncing. This thing I got here keeps falling down, so I got to kind of hold it. You know, I thought none of these things are meant to last more than a year, seems like, or 6 months. So, in any case, I'm going to tell the court I have a due process right. And a lot of this stuff you need to learn through case law. If you don't know how to look up case law, you should learn how to optimize your custody battle. So in case law, you see things like the fundamental fairness doctrine. I have a right to notice of a proceeding and a right to be heard. That's a due process right. Fundamental fairness doctrine. So if I have a fundamental fairness doctrine of a right to be notified of a proceeding and a right to be heard, usually you almost always get notice of a proceeding. It's the part of right to being heard. What does that mean, a right to be heard? Well, you got to look up case law that's interpreted that. Because the fundamental fairness doctrine is an interpretation of the 14th Amendment. Because the 14th Amendment is really short. It's a couple sentences. But to get deep into what the founders meant, and to catch up with the latest technology or the latest fad in the court system, or the latest this and that in society, we need to have modern courts to interpret and apply that law, the law of the land, the Constitution. And they interpret that, and they publish their interpretations in publications called the reporters of a case somewhere in the U.S. Supreme Court, in if you're in Minnesota, the Minnesota Supreme Court. If you're in Michigan, the Michigan Court of Appeals. Either the Court of Appeals or Supreme Court of your state or the United States Supreme Court has case law where that case interpreting the law becomes publicized case law, published in the reporters, the books that report on cases. So when you look up case law, you will find stuff. If you look up due process, you'll find a million things. You can study that forever. But if you look up Troxel versus Granville, within Troxel versus Granville, they talk about your liberty, interest, your constitutional right. And then you go and look up, okay, what does due process mean? I have a fundamental fairness doctrine right to be notified of a proceeding and a right to be heard. What does my right to be heard include? That includes the right to speak and defend myself, and also enough time to prepare before a hearing, before you're about to take away my right, and me and the mom are getting along and sharing 50-50, all of a sudden we go to court and she wants me to be on supervised visitation and treat me like a criminal. She wants to take away my liberty interest, my constitutional right under Troxel versus Granville in the 14th Amendment. I have a due process right to a fundamental fairness doctrine. She let me know about this hearing a week ago. I need a couple weeks to prepare for this so that I can have a full, fair hearing. If not, there's no due process. And when there's no due process, the judgment is void, which means it should be wiped out and vacated. Just like if somebody cheats in the Olympics or in a baseball home run derby or whatever in a competition, and they were found out to weightlifting competition, they were found out to have done steroids, they get stripped of the gold medal. It's void because they cheated. So if you don't have due process, you don't have a fair hearing, so they cheat. Also, if you look up case law on a judge's bias, when a judge is biased, that makes for an unfair hearing. If you have an unfair hearing, there's no due process, you don't have due process, then that judgment is void and it should be vacated and wiped out. So I would turn around and go and vacate an order like that, or appeal it if I can't get it vacated. Then you have the rules of evidence. The rules of evidence were created for a fair hearing. If the rules of evidence are violated, you don't have a fair hearing, you don't have a fair hearing, you don't have due process. So that should be vacated. So any violation of the evidence rules tainted the whole case. That's why you need to know the evidence rules. So a little short lesson on due process, some quickie things. That's a lot packed in there. You probably don't fully understand it. So you should get a consult with me or study deeply on the